Eric and Leah have moved to Upland, Indiana to birth a ministry, and it's not been easy, right? It's been kind of a crazy last year. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this last year and why it's been so crazy?
Sure. We started renovating in January of 2015, and that took us the better part of 9 months. And during that time, I was working full-time, and then I was my own contractor and construction worker. I would be gone every other weekend, at least, if not more, for long weekends up there building. And then during the week when I would come back, I was planning for the next weekend for construction. Leah was on her own with the kids during that time. It was really difficult, so we were both making big sacrifices to get this building ready for us, our family, to move into. Also, we were trying to get our house ready to sell here in Dayton, getting it on the market. That was a job after living there for almost 11 years. And then no sooner did we get moved and get the house on the market, and I got laid off from my job, made things really difficult financially. And then the house didn't sell anywhere near as fast as we had thought God would sell it. Our story versus his story didn't quite line up of what we thought his plan would be as far as that was concerned. So it was a very difficult time. Luckily, God provided some much-needed peace within that storm for us to cling to, which we can address later. So
this ministry wasn't just a random idea that you guys had one day and pick up everything good. So that you guys have been praying about for years. I actually remember before I even knew you, they came up here up front and asked for prayer about this, that God had put it on their heart. And Randy had people come up and surround them and pray for them. So where did this start? Like, what's the birth of this ministry? Where did God put it on your heart?
Sure. So I grew up in conservative Christianity. I was in church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, went to Bible camp every year. When I finished up high school, my parents wanted me to go to your Bible school. I didn't want to go to college at all. So I ended up going to Cedarville and was going to do this one-year Bible certificate. And although I didn't really want to go, I was hoping to get a sort of deeper understanding of my own faith, because I had a very passive faith at that time. It was what I learned from the pastor or my Sunday school teachers, but it wasn't really anything that I was doing to pursue a more active faith. So I was hoping to kind of get that while I was there, and I didn't really find what I was looking for, and ended up leaving after a semester and went to my oldest brother, Dan, and said, would you be interested in kind of helping me discover my faith on a deeper level? And he said, well, if we're going to do that, I want you to move in with me and my wife, and entered into this sort of academic one-year program that he sort of tailored around his 4-year career at Cedarville, and it completely changed my life. He made me get involved in the church instead of just attending the church. I had to get involved in a ministry also and kind of give back and sort of really put feet to my faith. And one of the things that really changed for me was I went from sort of expecting other people to do that to taking ownership in it, and then I immediately wanted to sort of find guys that were like me and replicate that process in them, because it was so important to my story, to getting on the same page as Jesus' story and realizing that this is really his story, and I can either choose to try to make my own story or become part of the greater picture in any way I can. So
after a lot of years of thinking about this, praying about it, talking about it, what was the thing that finally pushed you guys, into it?
Sure. So we were looking at properties around here. We thought we were going to get a property here in Waynesville, and that was when we came up and got prayer, and God kind of at the last minute closed the door on that. We were getting ready to make an offer, no one else was looking, and the next day it was sold. So I went up to see my brother Dan in Upland and was helping him on a brake job, because I always kind of go find him when the wheels fall off, and metaphorically speaking, although we did take his wheels off to do the brake job. And he was telling me about a guy in the neighborhood a couple blocks over that was 81 years old and ran bicycle trips across the United States and was winding down. He'd built this small little campus over there, and kind of dreaming with me, we walked down there and kind of peered through the windows and met this 81-year-old guy that conversation led to another one, to a relationship, to then they ended up giving us 2 buildings for $1. So, and that was really, really significant, because in the process of looking at it, they had kind of given us a number to buy. And when we crunched the numbers, we realized we could afford to get there, but we couldn't afford to stay. And so Leah was at the place where she said, if we're really supposed to move to Upland, I wish that they would just give us the property. So we would be on a shadow of a doubt, no, that's where we're supposed to be. And then the next day they called and said, we want to give you these two buildings. So we really clung to that as this storm has kind of been around us this last year. So
Leah, in that space where you guys were kind of thinking and talking about this, where were you? Like, spiritually, emotionally.
I was reluctant. I am cautious by nature, and he's always ready to go. And so there was a lot of praying, and one of the verses that I felt like God gave me to pray over was Proverbs 16:9. In his heart, a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. And that made it easier for me to accept opened and closed doors. I mean, there have still been a lot of disappointments and discouragements along the way. But when I had said that I wish that God would just give us the property, I really hoped that he wouldn't. I meant like, if it's meant to be, that would be nice if he gave it to us. But I was thinking maybe he won't, and then we won't have to go, because I really wanted to stay. Yes. But during this whole time, praying and trying to discern what God would have us do, I have an excerpt from one of my prayer journals from August 2014. I've been looking back through it to try to remember where I was emotionally during this time. And there was a part that I said, I don't want to get to the end of my life and have you say to me, why wouldn't you support Eric in obeying me? Why did you choose the safe and known over the leadership and calling of the husband I graciously gave to you? And so it was one of those moments where, was I going to keep pursuing my story that I thought was best, where we were comfortable and happy with friends and a great small group, a great church? Or were we going to pursue his story and the calling that he had given to Eric? And so we went and we proceeded.
You also told a story about, that was the first time when you're like, I wish God would just give us the property, and then did. And then you offered to do something else, to pray about something else, and then God, again, did what you didn't expect him to do.
Yes, during this time period, we were going through the Story Form Life curriculum, and then we also were introduced to the article. It's more like a book, but it's a document called Re-Family. And reading through that, I felt like God was asking me to pray about something that I have never considered, that I always wanted to not do. And I felt like God was asking me to pray about it. And so I said, okay, Lord, I'll pray about it, thinking that I could pray about it and then move on and say that I prayed about it. And the Lord, during that year of praying and searching about it, I started to seek out some other godly women who were doing this thing that God was having me pray about, which was homeschooling. And one of the women I sought out was Katie Meacham, and I was talking to her about it. And she said there was a year that she had felt God prompting her to homeschool their oldest child, and that she had gone ahead and sent her to kindergarten, and that it was a horrible year, and she couldn't wait for it to be over. That if you don't answer his calling, that it's disobedience. And so as God kept working on me, I thought, okay, well, I don't want to be disobedient. And that applied to this situation too, to moving. I didn't want to cause him or us to be disobedient, but also through God leading me to homeschool, which I was never going to do, when we moved, it gave us a community to get plugged into. We were part of a homeschool co-op, and to watch moms disciple each other and to all disciple our children together has just been a really neat way that God has made the transition an answer to prayer. Yeah.
So there's been a journey about kind of leaving your story and joining God's story. There's a night that I remember, I didn't tell the story in the other two services, but I remember we were all sitting in a room, a bunch of us as friends, and Eric read the lyrics to this song. And is it okay if I say you were weeping? I mean, he's basically weeping because he was saying that he didn't want his life to end up the way that it was. He wanted to be a part of God's story. It was a really profoundly powerful moment. And I really see that that's what you guys are doing. I mean, you're on this journey. It's taking courage. It's taking sacrifice. And I believe that God's going to use you in really significant ways, continue to, for his kingdom. So thanks for being with us this morning and for sharing. Appreciate you guys.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Give them a hand.